Hello everyone, this is Urkali from EP628. I'm going to be talking about a couple of notes from Module 2, and I will also talk about the instructions for Module 3. This will be a short presentation. For Module 2, you have read and discussed about three different learning theories: behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. I just wanted to point out that these theories are not mutually exclusive. They are related to each other. They just do provide different explanations and emphasis on how learning occurs. They are related and they do not necessarily rule out each other. Starting with behaviorist perspective, we can say that behaviorist perspective in a nutshell thinks that learning is basically a response to a given stimulus. So we can change people's learning, we can change people's response by adjusting the stimulus, by providing different kinds and sets of stimulus. In this sense, we really do not necessarily explain so much about what happens in our mind, in our brain. From behaviorist perspective, brain is kind of a black box. From a cognitivist perspective, actually, stimulus and response system is still there, except that we do have a more explanation about what happens in the mind, in our minds. We will read about this more later in the semester, but pretty much cognitive perspective tries to explain, how we process the information by using our ears, our eyes, how we make sense of it by using the information from our long-term memory for what we already know. But again, it does not rule out stimulus and response connection. It just explains what might happen in the brain as we process the information. When we add the constructivism in the table, then we can see that stimulus and response can still be there, but there are more things. There are more ways and activities that can be considered stimulus. Constructivist perspective does not rule out what happens in the mind. It just provides more explanation about what is really happening, what kind of learning, what kind of meaning we are making. Stimulus can be in the form of activities that we are involved in, or the information that we are processing, or even the interactions that we have with other students or with the content. Everything can be considered a stimulus. So we try to make sense of it, we try to process that information, but we provide some sort of response, which might be in the form of a reflection, or a blog post, or your post in the discussion forums in this class, for instance. You again make your interpretations, not just memorize what you learn, but actually you try to react, try to make a point by making arguments. So you are really constructing your own knowledge as opposed to memorizing and repeating other things. And synthesis is maybe the next level. You are creating your own understanding. You are synthesizing your understanding based on what you've read. So what you might be doing in this class, your postings can be considered a response from a constructivist point of view. This is maybe not the most appealing graphic, maybe, but it kind of shows that these three theories can be interacting, can be not ruling out each other, but can be actually explaining a different part of learning. So it might be a good thing to keep in mind. So for the next module, next week, module number 3, we have Unit 5 and Unit 6. For Unit 5, you're going to be discussing about instructional system design models. So there are some models there that helps us, that provide some guidance for us to develop training, some instructional interventions. So your goal for Unit 5 is to describe your own personal model. I mean, you have some ideas. I mean, you will have some readings, of course, but talk about what you think your own personal model should look like. You can actually draw it. I mean, you're required to draw your own model by using PowerPoint, documents, Word document or Google Doc. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be really fancy, but try to visualize what your own model should look like. And think about maybe learners, assessments, instructional strategies, evaluation concepts when you are drawing your model. For Unit 6, we again talk about instructional system design model, but then you're going to be writing an argument, following the formats that we have been using so far in this class. The question you're being asked is, would you recommend your organization, whether it's a school, whether it's a corporate setting, Would you recommend them to keep instructional system design model as a way to develop their teaching, to develop their training? Or would you recommend them to adapt instructional system design model if they don't use it? You can actually argue against ISD. You might say that this model is really not effective. That's fine. But always think about maybe advantages or disadvantages of these models, whether they are really justified. But also be specific to your context. If you are a teacher, then describe your context, that you're in a school. You're going to be telling your principal that the school should adapt or not adapt ISD, or you might be an employee, a trainer in a corporate setting, and you again want to reason and explain to your maybe boss that you would recommend them to keep the ISD or not. So you would be writing an argument for that, and that's going to be pretty much it for Unit 6. If you have any questions about these assignments, just shoot me an email and I will get back to you. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.